Thank you everyone for being here. We were in executive session prior to discuss proposed, pending, or current litigation made confidential by the FERPA law. No action was taken. The next Board of Education meeting will be next week, May 26th at 7 o'clock right here on Zoom, and it'll be our budget public hearing. So that's a good opportunity for people who have comments related to the budget to share them with us. The budget and annual district meeting, budget and trustee vote will be held Tuesday, June 9th, and that will be done via absentee ballot. The ballots will be mailed to all registered voters and must be returned by 5 p.m. on June 9th. So I will let Catherine speak to any pertinent information about that, but that is an important point, that they are returned by June 9th, not put in the mail on June 9th. The note here says that we will be meeting at 7:30 that night. So the ballots get in by 5. I'm assuming that we're hoping that gives enough time to count the ballots so that we will have a tally for 7:30. So the meeting is pushed to 7:30 that night. We may be sitting around twiddling our thumbs while we await anxiously the count, but hopefully it is done by then. And yes, the result of the vote will be, yes, please.
So right now, the district calendar on the website shows that meeting at 7 o'clock on the 9th. So if it's going to be 7:30, we just want to make sure to update that.
Thank you. And the results of the vote will be announced following the closing of the polls and the counting. Catherine Platt, would you like to say anything more about any of that?
Not really, just, to remind people that when they get it, if they can just send it back as soon as possible so that we know for sure we have them 5 p.m. on the 9th. We are hoping that we don't have anybody try to drop them off. We do plan to have someone in the office very limited hours on the 9th, just to get any stragglers if anyone forgot to drop it in the mail on time. But if people could mail them back, they are postage paid. So we're hoping that everyone will just drop them in the mail.
And I'm assuming when you send them, it tells them like, get it in the mail by June 1st or, whatever. So there's a week of lead time.
It doesn't have an exact date, but it did say the mail and that we'd only have a person on site on the one day.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Jen, internally, I'm sorry to interject if it's okay. We are going to, at least for our family, send out a robocall encouraging them to get it in by a particular day. And then our supporting organizations have indicated that they'll also support us in getting that message out. That way, folks who do vote have their vote counted.
Yes, that's important. Okay, thank you. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Benante for his update.
Thanks, Jen. I have a few updates this evening, so bear with me. And I'm actually going to share our screen really quickly, and I'm a little more into this than most, but I think it just speaks to Catherine's efforts and also Megan and Ann's and what's going on behind the scenes to bring this vote together. So I just want to share with you an overview of this is our project management template that we use for this particular project. And you can see that with the shift to an absentee ballot system, there were over 40 related action steps or items that had to be addressed in bringing this together. So this is just something we use to keep ourselves organized. And there's likely steps on here that we didn't even, that we don't have articulated, but we've done. And I just think it speaks again to the significance of this project and the undertaking and Catherine's management of it, along with Megan's and Ann's, and then the rest of our business office in particular, because they've all played a big role in making sure that this project comes together and that we facilitate this absentee ballot process well. And again, that everybody who wants to vote has their vote counted. And of course, now part of our efforts is to make sure we get out the vote. And again, Catherine, thanks to you and Ann here for all of your work on this. Just going to bounce around on a few topics just related to some things as they've come up. One of the governor's recent executive orders, which I feel like I say this every week we're together, but now allows for safe or low risk recreational activity. And as you know, that there's certain areas of our campus that the community has come to enjoy for low risk recreational activity. So two of those spaces are our tennis courts and also our track area. So in speaking with Tim today, we're prepared to open those areas back up for community use within certain restrictions or guidelines being followed, and communicating that at least to internally well, I should say to our parents, because we have contacts for our parents and doing so tomorrow, but also having clear signage up so anybody who's coming onto our campus would know that those spaces are available for use, but please follow these precautions when you're, if and when you choose to access them. So we feel comfortable beginning that this week, and I feel confident that our community members will use those spaces responsibly. If we find that they're not able to use them responsibly, and then we had this issue more so with kids, when we had the athletic fields open back in March, where there was congregating going on, we will have to shut those spaces back down. So we will make note of this in whatever we use to communicate to families in our community after tonight. But we do think that hopefully the last 2 months, everybody has educated themselves well to how to socially distance and not to congregate, and the reasons why, and that those parameters will be honored for our spaces and the tennis court area, and also the walking or the track area. Now, we have other spaces on our campus that folks like to utilize. For example, the playground. I would still communicate to our families that the playground is off limits and should be. And there's a reason for that. So low risk recreational activity, something like tennis where you're bringing your own equipment, or running or walking the track where your only equipment is your shoes and you can easily stay apart, is one thing. Using the playground area where we don't know how many people, and we're not in a position to monitor how many people in any given day would come and utilize it, and we don't have a process for cleaning the playground equipment on a routine basis in the way that it would need to, considering the current crisis. So we're still going to keep that space closed and encourage folks not to congregate, obviously, on the basketball courts or other areas around our campus. So, but we wanted to make note of that tonight in our communication, that with some of these restrictions being lifted, that some of our campus space could be utilized. And I'll pause there if there's any questions from our board. Okay. In that communication to our families, we are also going to include a parent survey as it relates to the continuity of learning plan. So our families have been engaged in continuity of learning activities for the last, let's see, March, April, May, for the last 2 months now, and will for approximately another month. And it's important for us to check in with our families, not to necessarily make a shift between now and the end of the school year, but to include in our planning for the beginning of next school year. We have every indication that we're going to be required to have a continuity of learning plan in place for the start of next school year in the event that we have to go back to remote learning in some way. We think there's some things that we did really well over these past few months. We know that there's some areas that we could improve upon, and we want to make sure that we capture parent feedback on behalf of them and their kids before we break for the summer. So that's information that we'll include in our planning through the summer months in preparation for next school year, and that will go out tomorrow with the update about the campus.
Great.
Let's see. It just included in, it won't be in that communication, but in the next week or two, we also recognize that we have to coordinate students coming back to campus in some way. to return or to collect their belongings, because there's still a lot of stuff here for that belongs to our kids or their families, but also to return materials at the conclusion of the school year. So we're aware of that. We haven't put anything out to families yet. Our thought process is that there's going to be a series of things to communicate for end of school year routines, and we'll put that communication out in the coming week or weeks, so families have it all in one spot and know what the plan is for the closing weeks of the school year. I think Julia is going to speak a little bit when the time comes in her report to graduation and some of the planning and coordinating that's going on with respect to that. Other building principals may as well. There's a lot of activity that comes with the closure of the school year, and I know our team's prepared to speak to that if there's any specific building questions that the board may have when it comes time for them to report. And then the last thing I have, Jen, if it's okay, should I speak about the calendar now, or should we wait till it comes up in the agenda? Just because it's on the agenda for action, so I thought it might be better at the front end here to talk about the machinations that are going into a readjustment of the school calendar proposal. For
I think now is good. We haven't,
Yeah.
people are still listening.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so this is my last, second to last piece. So,
yeah.
So as you know, we've been providing instruction since the day we closed in some way, shape, or form, which included the cancellation of what was our spring break. It also included an adjustment to the upcoming Memorial Day weekend. We were originally planned to have this Thursday and Friday as a school recess day, but by, again, one of the executive orders by the governor, we're now in session on those days. So we really have to adjust our calendar now to shorten the school year, or what was the initial date of the end of the school year. Our teachers, as part of their work, have a maximum contact time of 180 days with our students. If we were to count these remote instruction days as contact with our students, we're going to hit 180 days sooner in June than we had anticipated, all things considered. Quite frankly, our teachers, I think, have done a very good job, and I think the last day anybody was off, if there is such a thing, was back in February. So we've been going at it. I think our families have been going at it too. And quite frankly, speaking to several of them, are welcoming the end of the school year. And I know as a parent, as I am as well. So with that, I'm just going to pull up a draft of what this calendar revision would look like for anybody who's watching. So let me just pull it up first on my end, and then I'll share my screen. Okay, so that's set. And all right, so here we go. So I'm going to focus more on the right-hand side of the calendar here, this time stemming from March through June. So you'll see the March 13th Superintendent's Conference Day, which was the last day we were actually all on campus together. March 12th would have been the last day we were all on campus with kids. And we've really been providing continuity of instruction since that time. We still have the May 25th, next Monday, Memorial Day recess. That's a federal holiday, so we are off on May 25th. But we will reach the 180th day with students then now on June 12th. And June 15th then will become a Superintendent's Conference Day for staff. So as you can see, typically in this last second semester, we would have had school recess days through this first period in April for the spring recess. Again, I mentioned what was for us this year scheduled to be a holiday, an extended Memorial Day holiday. School will have been in session in some way, shape, or form through this period. So if I were to look at the bottom here, and this is just how we format, on the student contact days, you can see that these contact days are listed at the bottom of the calendar, and we'll arrive at 180 on, again, June 13th. We only had 2 snow days this year, so those are factored into the calendar as well. And then we have our 4 Superintendent's Conference days where staff report throughout the year for that. So tonight's agenda is a resolution to adopt this school calendar, a revised school calendar for the remainder of the year. And assuming this were to go past tonight, then we will notify our families tomorrow that the last day of school for students will be on June 12th, as opposed to June 25th, I believe is which it was initially on our calendar.
Makes sense. Any questions from the board on that? No.
Nope. Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, you may have read in the local paper, again, I'm sorry, I'm going to share my screen one more time. We're very proud of Mr. Virginamo, and you may have read in the Highlands Current, Tom was the feature of the five question portion or column in the Current. And Tom has been very active over the last couple of months in fundraising for local businesses. This started, if I remember correctly, back in March, where he had a few ideas on how to do some fundraising for local businesses who were impacted by the shutdown. And that has now gone. There's been several other engagements that he's facilitated where he's now raised over $24,000 that's going back to the local community in some way, shape, or form. And he's actually enlisted the support of a few of his friends in other communities who've raised, I think, an equivalent amount for their community. So I was talking to Tom about this today, and he said all in total, they've raised over $50,000 that's been donated right back to local business establishments in the respective communities, 24,000 of which I believe has been donated to communities between Cold Spring, Phillipstown, and Beacon. So I just wanted to mention that if you haven't had a chance to check out this column, Tom is featured here with his lovely family. And just wanted to point out, obviously one of our educators just doing great work in addition to the work that Tom does in the classroom and extending that now in his service to our broader community. And we're all very proud of him. And I just wanted to, I'd be remiss if I did not bring that to your attention if you hadn't had a chance to see that yet. And please check it out in the recent issue of the Current. With that, Jen, that concludes my remarks, and go from there.
Okay, great. So we do not have any special presentations for this evening. We're going to move into our information reports and the star guest of our meeting tonight. So Andrew, would you like to begin, please?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's good to be back.
We've missed you.
Thank you. You too. So I think it's been 2 months now, and I think from a lot of the surveying I've done, students are pretty okay with how it's been going. It took a little while to get adjusted, but some classes have been having 2 to 3 Zoom calls per week. Most teachers assign some daily work. There's a lot of conversations and communication over email, and I think maybe right around mid-April was when it clicked for everyone, and it's been pretty smooth sailing since then. As for some of the upperclassmen who are taking APs, I think most students have had a pretty good time with that. It's been going pretty well for a lot of the community. I cannot speak to that. I've had 2 exams canceled, but I know most of my friends have, it's been flawless for them. And then with regard to, from what I see on social media, it appears that the student body they're doing pretty well. Given the circumstances, people have finally been starting to, I guess, go outside with masks. People have been doing a lot of communication and playing games online. And I really think students are making the best of this. And it's really encouraging to see how people have been handling this.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrew, if I may, you mentioned APs. Can you just speak to the shift that was made in APs and how students are taking them now? Because I don't know if every board member would be necessarily aware of that.
So instead of being the standard 3.5-hour exams, they've been moved to 45-minute open note online exams, all short response, no multiple choice. And so what you have to do then is upload a document to their servers. And I think according to some of the stuff they sent out, they've had about 98% of students have it go through. And then for this week, they resolved some of the issues by allowing alternative ways to send it. So they've done a really good job with, I guess, adapting to all the difficulties with it. Especially, I was really, having had 2 of my exams canceled last week, it was really great to see that they fixed that for this week. But having spoken with some teachers privately about it, and some students and students and teachers in groups, overall, the fact that we still can take them and potentially get credit, I think is just, that's what people are really happy about.
Thank you, Andrew. You should know we talk at every meeting, which these days are weekly, about how concerned we are about the student body, and how proud we are of the student body, being adaptable and flexible and finding the new ways to do things. So we're really proud of you guys, and at the same time, we're really we're worried about you. We're concerned. We want to make sure you guys are getting what you need, emotionally, academically, and so it's good to hear that you're making the best out of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jamin, our elementary school principal.
Hello, everybody. So the elementary school is our teachers are continuing to do a lot of really good work to support our students. The youngest of our kids do need a lot more support, and we recognize that the parents are really filling in those gaps, because the kindergartners are obviously a lot less independent than our seniors and juniors in high school. So requiring a lot of parental support and guidance, we definitely appreciate. Our phonics team, who've been piloting the TC Phonics over the course of the year, presented to our coordinators and our instructional team, which includes representatives from each grade level. And we were able to evaluate the phonics program. The closure has meant that because the teachers at grade levels are collaborating on delivering instruction to our students, that all of our kindergarten, first and second graders have been exposed to some of those TC Phonics strategies, because the teachers are collaborating with the lesson instruction. So working with Dr. Benante to determine what board meeting would make the most sense to present that information and our recommendations for moving forward from the pilot that was done this year. In that vein, there were 4 teachers and myself that we were able to attend a virtual institute with Teachers College that normally would run down in the city and go for 3 days in person, but we were able to attend virtually, which was something that I don't think we would have been able to do under normal circumstances, because that would have been travel, substitutes, a lot of us out of the building. So in some ways we were able to have more participation than we would have. So we were able to go do a lot of professional development around best practices with phonics. So that was 3 days at the beginning of May. And the grading addendum went out for elementary. And for the board and for anybody watching, I want to just reiterate that the purpose of the elementary report cards is really parent communication. They're a standards-based report card, so it's not about the work that's getting completed during this closure. It's about looking at the information we have on our students from the first 2/3 of the year, using the information we have from student work during the closure to then evaluate how did students progress against the grade level standards, rather than a judgment of they did it or they didn't do it, or they could have done more. It's about what kind of work they're doing. So the standards that will be reported on in that report card are reduced significantly. Sorry, hold on. It is also my daughter's 5th birthday, so people are trying to call and sing her happy birthday, and my phone is ringing. So ignoring that. Sorry about that. So that report card will have fewer standards on it, but we were really working to create something that would give parents some information which they deserve and that they want for their students, on how their child progressed over the course of the year, and if there's any areas that they should be concerned about or that would require support when we come back in the fall. So they're not a judgment of work done. It's just a communication tool so that you have the information you need about where your child is at. So that is that. We are working on plans for a virtual 5th grade moving up ceremony. That is in very beginning stages. The 5th graders have been working on creating their own slides that represent them and who they are and what's important to them, that can be used during that ceremony in some format. And our class parents have been working on the gift of memories. So trying to make something that's still really special for them, but details are still being ironed out. And that's what I have from the elementary school.
Christine, can I just ask you to speak
Yeah.
a little bit about if there are any plans developing for kindergarten orientation?
Yeah, so Haldane starts kindergarten, the process for kindergarten registration quite early in the year. So we had registration, and also the parent orientation with the teachers had already occurred prior to closure. What was recently postponed, and at this point postponed even further, is our kindergarten screenings. So kindergartners would have come in and been screened with a teacher. And during that, I would have met with parents to just go over some logistics of what it looks like to get your child ready for kindergarten. Right now, those screenings are postponed. We have hopes that we would be able to, at some point during the summer, be able to conduct one-on-one screening meetings with the incoming kindergartners. And then creating a time. So what the students would have been with the teachers, and the parents would have been with me during those screenings for that information. So either creating that same scenario, or if we're not able to have as many kids on campus, doing a few smaller or doing something virtually so that the parents still get some of those logistics. But quite frankly, with the reentry planning, those logistics as I would have presented them may not be accurate. So waiting so that we get accurate information to families as we look a little bit at that reentry plan. So the orientation already occurred right before closure, but we do have some outstanding pieces for incoming kindergarten families that will probably happen in early summer. Or screenings maybe August if we're looking to be in person. So a parent orientation in early summer, and screenings probably in a later summer if possible.
And has there been communication to parents, the incoming?
Yeah, so there was, yes, there was one email communication with them, and then another one will be going out shortly with basically what I just told you, that we're looking to, we're hoping to still do those screenings and that information for families, and pending what safety guidelines there are. But at the very least, there will be a virtual opportunity for parents, and then we would evaluate if we're waiting till September, is it worthwhile to do a screening, or do we just use the assessment tools we would usually use in the building? We'd have to plan for that if in-person screenings weren't possible over the summer.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question which is more sort of general. After you do the screenings, is the information you share with parents, Christine, is it usually personalized based on the screenings, or it's just general, parents of rising kindergartners, these are things to do with your children? This is just something I'm curious about. I'm not familiar with this process.
So it's more general about, things they would need to start kindergarten, things you might not have thought of that kindergartners can have a tough time with and might require some support over the summer. And then the screening information is used to balance classes so that we can spread students with different academic or social emotional needs across the 3 classrooms and create the most supportive environment.
Great, thank you so much.
And we do have a little bit of information because, again, Haldane starts this process early, which at the time, I'll be honest, coming from somewhere else, I was like, wow, we are starting this way early. And I can't be more thankful for that at this point, because our teachers visited all the preschools. They already had interviews with the preschool teachers. And we have all of that anecdotal information that, if necessary, we would still have some information to create balanced classes. It wouldn't be as complete as what we have in other years, but it would still be valuable information. We're not going into it blind the way we would if none of that had happened and just, you know, first half of the alphabet goes in this room. No, we have more than that. So we do have some good information that we can use if we have to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have 2 quick questions. One that's sort of related. Obviously, this would be the time when, well, maybe not obviously, I would think that this would be the time you'd think about placement for classes for next year for students who are
Yes.
already in. That's probably challenging given remote and also given the lack of sort of the normal end of year ramp up and progression into the next year. How's that going? Anything you're finding? Like, what's the story?
So we did articulation meetings last week and got to meet, review students and their levels and where they're at and what supports they may require going into next year. And then next week we review pretty much what will be the final draft. I won't say it's the final iteration of class lists, but the final draft should be put together for next week. So we're in a decent place for that. Luckily, you know, this year we did get through 2/3 of the year. So we know which students were getting along and which ones weren't. We know basically who was really struggling and requiring behavioral or social emotional support, who was requiring academic support in the classroom. So those things can be balanced. And then parent surveys went out and that information was collected. It was done through a Google form, but we got a lot of those back and then used that information too. So I think we're in an okay place.
Good, great. The other question I had was something you triggered off something you raised at the beginning with the parents of kindergartners and early elementary students having to lean in a lot because of the nature of what children need in terms of their educational guidance at that point. To what extent have you done, if any, sort of outreach to those parents to say, okay, you're now basically co-teaching with us at home. You've never done this before. You don't have an education degree. If you had to think about helping your kids through the day, setting up math, like here are some things you can use to be a better partner with us in trying to deliver education in this distant. Those conversations have probably happened one-off. I was just wondering whether that's been any sort of formal discussion of that.
The teachers have had discussions with the individual families, and I'm hopeful that the district survey will give us more information on how that went or what things were difficult so that we can really reflect on that. And if this becomes necessary in the future, we can do that differently.
Okay. All right.
Or supplement. We might find that a lot of it went really well and it just needs something slightly different. That's my hope. I mean, kindergarten's gotten a lot of positive feedback. A lot of families have reached out to me and said that things are going well, but like you said, there may be things that families would have benefited from in addition or around what works that they're learning only through the process is what they need to know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just jamming in the hot seat tonight.
In the hot seat, lead off.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Silke.
Good evening, everyone. At the middle school, we've been focusing on, aside from communication and closure, we've been focusing on continuity of learning and connection And Tom Frigidano was just all over the papers the last couple of weeks because the sixth grade teachers did a drive-by parade for sixth grade students. And Tom's picture is there too, as well as the other shining faces from our sixth grade team. We are happy to have Terry Eckes on board, who is doing virtual book clubs, a cat named Mango for the sixth grade, and Refugee for the seventh and eighth grade. I also had the opportunity to speak with Maureen McGrath from the librarian from the Butterfield. And even though the Battle of the Books, which is a big middle school activity over the summer, will not be happening in person, it'll be happening virtually. So that's something to look forward to as well. The music teachers, Ms. Roboda and Ms. Stein and Mr. McGroarty, are working on middle school, high school talent show that will be on May 29th at 7 p.m. Via webinar. So that's another piece of connection to look forward to. We're happy to have our partnerships in the community. Danielle Pack-McCarthy and the Phillipstown Hub have been doing weekly middle school meetups for middle schoolers of Phillipstown. And Coach Caldiero was guest speaker on their middle school meetup last week. So that was nice for kids. And also the Cove Care educators have restarted up their lunch bunch virtually so that kids can have the opportunity to connect, because of course academics are key, and at the same time a big part of school, especially middle school, is social emotional. So I just wanted to highlight some of those opportunities to connect that the middle school and Friends are working on. Since it was a topic of interest for Ms. Jammin, I figured I would also mention to you that the fifth grade parent night has been rescheduled. It was going to be in person. It was postponed due to the closure of COVID. So we're going to do it via webinar on June 4th. So that will proceed as planned. And in terms of the eighth grade moving up, to align with the fifth grade moving up, we're going to do a webinar similar. We're going to have a photo parade. I met with Mr. McConville, the eighth grade team leader, and the PTA class parents today to work out some of those details. And I'm very grateful to them for their support and their flexibility in creating a special day for our eighth graders. I'm also really grateful to the Haldane School Foundation, because usually the talent show is a fundraiser for the band and chorus program. And rather than charge for tickets for a webinar for the talent show, the Haldane School Foundation has agreed to match what, if we put in for a grant, to match what the normal proceeds would be for that. So thank you so much to Haldane School Foundation. It's really great to work in this community where everyone comes together so well for the benefit of our students. So thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Dr. Seelke. Ms. Sniffen.
I think I'll start. I think everybody has my report, but I think I'm going to focus on the seniors to start my report here this evening. I'd like to thank Carol Hopper. All of the scholarship opportunities have been put in digital format for our seniors to apply for scholarship as they have in the past. And without her being willing to do that, that opportunity may not have happened. So I just want to thank her for that. I sent out a letter to senior parents the other day, kind of giving them an update in terms of where we were at with the planning for the seniors. I had met with the senior class officers in addition to the senior class parents with my class parent meeting last week. So within those meetings and talking with Dr. Benante and the class advisors, we kind of have some shell of ideas that we are moving forward in terms of planning. First of all, the senior internships start on Tuesday after Memorial Day, so they will be taking part in that. We are working right now on 2 different scenarios for graduation. The first of the scenarios is a video production of all aspects of graduation will be created as if the graduation happened in real time at the Knoll And that movie production will be put together thanks to the support and help of Damian McDonald and Jim Mikalakis, who are masters at doing this kind of work. We have been writing the script behind the scenes. We have been laying it all out. We will be hiring a photographer to help in the distribution of caps and gowns and getting pictures of our students and their families on campus. That will require appointment only, obviously, because we cannot have gatherings at the school. But those dates have yet to be determined. We're trying to firm up the photographer to do that work. Thanks to the Haldane School Foundation, they are going to help in supplementing the cost of some of that. The second scenario is that we would be able to have a small ceremony take place on campus. Of course, that will only happen if we receive word that we can, and that we then follow the public health guidelines and the approvals there. If the small ceremony can happen on campus, we will be live streaming that ceremony because we recognize we won't have the over 700 people on campus that we normally would. We have to limit it to, maybe 2 guests per graduate. And then live stream it for everybody else. So we're working off both of those plans. I am working as if both of them are going to happen. And then we will make a decision. I think at first I was like, well, the week of June 1st, but I feel like I could even push it a second week to June 2nd, the second week in June, before we make a final decision. In my communication with these senior class officers, it's so nice to hear Andrew and where Andrew is and Andrew's experience. I know not every senior is in the same place that Andrew is at, and so we're navigating some of that with some of our seniors. But one of the things the seniors were really adamant about is they want to be on campus. They want closure. If it means, a one-on-one appointment graduation, to hear their name on the knoll and to be able to ring the bell was really something they were very strongly advocating for. I said, well, what if, there were 3 small ceremonies and there were, 25 of you in each of the ceremonies, and then we could have a couple of parents, and they said, no, they want to be with their classmates. It was important to them that the 65 were together. So trying to navigate that, and obviously we can only do what we can do. They recognize and they were very mature about the fact that it'll come down to public health and following those guidelines. So those are the 2 scenarios. We are working on a scoop the loop for the students. That is typical of what we do at Haldane. I think many people know that. We are soliciting the support of Putnam County Sheriff's Department, and our SRO is supporting us in that, in addition to the local fire departments. Ms. Granisi and Ms. Preparo are doing a lot of the work behind the scenes for that. We will put out the route that the, the parade will follow for people to, so be on the lookout for that. Also in the letter, it did state that unfortunately a traditional school sponsored prom will not be possible. We know now with the last day of school, potentially in that time frame, that will be post the prom date. And so we, at this point, have been advised that a school sponsored prom, even into the summer, is not possible. So that's really where we are with the seniors in terms of the update. A couple other updates from the high school. We did move forward with our academic awards. The academic awards letters were all mailed out last week, and the academic awards lists are posted on the website. So you can see all of the students that were honored for their academic achievement. And I think I will stop there.
Julia, is the date for graduation remaining the same?
Yeah, so we put down June 20th, and obviously if it's a small ceremony and it's nice out on June 20th, it will be June 20th. If we have to do the appointments, we will probably need more than 1 day to do the appointments. And we have to pay attention to the weather too. So my letter stated the weekend of June 20th. It might have to be 19, 20, 21. I think we're going to have to play that out as it gets a little bit closer, depending upon if we have the individual or if we can have a small ceremony. Typically it's on one day, and on that day, if it rains, it goes inside. Like, that's not going to be the option. Like, if it rains on that day, we're going to have to look to adjust the date if we get the approval for a small ceremony.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Tara Rounds.
Good evening. I just wanted to share with the board tonight and comment on right now, one of our biggest tasks this time of year as a department, as a PPS Department of Special Education, is conducting annual reviews. And we start those annual reviews, they go from February all the way in through the end of June. So when we first closed, we had to shift pretty quickly into conducting these annual reviews through video conferencing. Because the department was very committed to making sure that all of our students with disabilities would start the year off next year with an IEP, with a plan in place to make sure that all of their needs are met from the start of the school year. So having about 180 meetings to conduct between 504 plans and IEPs, we had to get started right away. And I comment on this because, it was a big undertaking for Kim Patinella, secretary, our special services secretary, who started not just putting together agendas, but also she sends individualized Zoom invites via email to every participant. And also to comment on Dawn Rosano, who is our newly appointed CSE chairperson this year. So she had just finished the training to be a CSE chairperson. She had experience in being at these meetings, but she was a newly appointed chairperson. So she learned to be a chairperson and learned to do these chair these meetings virtually via video conference pretty quickly, and jumped right in. And I have to thank her because she was enthusiastic and she had a can-do attitude, and she's been doing a great job. And what I will say about all of these meetings is that we've had great parent participation. There's been an incredible amount of patience and versatility from both our providers and our parents. And, we're used to having meetings and in planning for our students with disabilities, sitting around the table with files and reports in front of us to refer back to. And, now we're sitting in our homes and our providers are toggling from screen to screen, trying to look at reports and, report on progress towards goals for our students. And as I said, our parents have been very patient with that. And I just wanted to note that also there's a theme of overall gratitude that I'm hearing at every single one of these meetings. Our parents have been thanking our providers, and our providers have been thanking our parents at all of the hard work that is going on right now. So it's really great to see that our teachers, our providers, our parents are all very grateful for the work that's getting done right now with our students, particularly with our students with disabilities. And then just one further comment. I know that we've touched on this before, but we do have a few families that are struggling with circumstances that are outside of our regular distance learning or educational circumstances. And I just wanted to comment that our providers and our teachers, our counselors are still working with these families, still reaching out, still collaborating as a team to try to find supports and resources and stay in regular contact to make sure that we're assisting in any way that we can. And I felt that it was important to comment on that because as time goes on, their efforts are tireless. We're doing everything that we can, and they're continuing to do everything that they can to support not just the educational aspect, but also outside challenges that are happening with some of our students and families right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Salam.
So, good evening, everyone. Just a couple updates.
I can't quite hear you. Am I the only one?
Nope. Chris has crappy Wi-Fi.
Chris.
To introduce Mr. He as next level president.
Chris, I'm going to stop you because we can't hear you. We can't understand
Good
you.
evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
A
It's
little better.
Chris.
Better.
I think we lost him again there, Jen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chris. I think we'll.
Okay,
I think
so
we'll.
I'm going to try again. I apologize for that. So I just want to say I would like to introduce
No, he's muted again.
Okay.
All right.
Phil, would you just send him a quick text and tell him he's off the hook? Tim Walsh.
Hi, good evening, everyone. The facilities department continues to operate at a reduced function. We have individuals on campus every day, continuing to make sure that the buildings are safe and secure. We see an uptick more in our grounds department here, having to make sure that the grass and the grounds are maintained as we get into the spring season. We also see an uptick in a lot of our regulatory agencies coming back online and wanting to do inspections. So we're bringing individuals on campus to make sure that that happens. We also have a custodian on staff every day, making sure that they provide access, provide disinfecting behind anyone who does need access for, particularly for removing any teaching materials that are required to continue on instruction. We're working on plans for students and faculty to come back to clean out the classrooms for the end of the year, as well as working on plans for whatever we may see at the beginning of the semester and what conditions may be in for us then. We have had a lot of conversations with BOCES, a lot of conversations with our suppliers, as well as having taken a significant inventory control or inspection that we have on campus here for what materials we have. And we have seen some of the supply lines open up in terms of PPE that is available. So we're starting to get some of that in, and we'll get that in further on over the summer to make sure that we're prepared for particularly for the fall when we come back on campus. Additionally, for capital construction, we're still on schedule to commence capital construction on the site improvement, the parking lot work on June 29th. That is the start date for construction. All submittals have been submitted by the contractor and approved by the architect. So they're ready to commence as soon as June 29th starts. And then we're anticipated to finish that in early August with enough time to open up, weather permitting, of course. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you administrators and Andrew for your reports. It's so clear that you're all navigating new territory and you're working your tails off and you're doing it for your kids, our kids. And we thank you for your work and for sharing your work with us. Okay, we're going into the communication from the public. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Jen, did you see that Chris put something in the chat saying that he could type what he would like to report? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense for us to ask him to do that, or if we think that his written report is adequate.
I think his written report is adequate. If he types something here before the end of the meeting, I could read it during our communication from the public section.
Okay, great. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is our communication from the public time. So if there's anybody listening who would like to communicate with us, you can do so via chat, and we will address it during our second communication from the public section of the meeting. Okay, we're going into our committee minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
These are the Code of Conduct minutes from January 13th, 2020. Are there any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
These are our minutes from May 5th meeting and May 12th meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're going into new business. So these are the CSE, CPSE recommendations, and I will turn it over to Ms. Platt.
Thank you. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The approval to adopt the 2020 Strategic Coherence Plan. Ms. Platt.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby adopts the 2020 Strategic Coherence Plan as presented at the May 5th, 2020 meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
So this is the Strategic Coherence Plan that was presented to us at the last meeting. Is there any further discussion? We thank Dr. Benante, Mr. Costa, all of those who worked on the plan intimately, as well as those that contributed from the community. I'm really excited to see it get implemented. So thank you for your work. All those, oh, sorry.
No, come on, you can't get away with that. I gotta have something. So two quick questions. One, I'm always appreciative that we have the actions for moving forward, and that actually, which are for those following along at home who may not have it in front of them, which are very specific action steps with a name attached to it and a timeline attached to it, which is always great. Or if not a name, at least a group. One that actually, in rereading this, it actually made me sort of ask a question that I maybe didn't catch, which is are we going to have? Are we thinking of having sort of a regular mid-year, end of year touch base on progress towards goals, and how are you going to roll this out?
Yeah,
going
John,
forward?
Really at 2 points in time. So we have to. There's some work we have to do in how we're going to organize the facilitation of those action items through next school year, especially now considering the context may be very different, but it doesn't mean the work changes. And I see there being 2 checkpoints with the board, a January or mid-year, and then an end of year in some way. And our team has to re-engage periodically as well, because those action items are really only looking out 6, no more than 12 months at a time. So every 6 or 12 months, depending again on the status of the work, we then have to look out another 6 to 12 months for the next series of actions that will follow. So it's a living document, as it should be. And but no, to answer your question, at least twice a year you'll have an update.
Great. And my only other comment would be, I love the incorporation of the Haldane essentials at the very beginning. I think one thing that may be useful at some point would be a sort of a shared understanding of some of those, because some of them are, some people may bring a lot of different definitions to, for example, wellness. And that, I think that's great. And I think it's great that it's an essential for Haldane, but what that means to everyone and how we're actioning on that or thinking about that, I think might be a useful conversation.
Yeah, and I think that it goes to show how we're on this. I think we're seeing this through a similar lens. We had actually planned on the superintendent's conference day, March 15th. That was our very work with our faculty. That being said, we had to change course because we were anticipating potentially being closed. So that's work that we'll start next school year with, is that plan we had for March 15th. We'll work with that through our faculty on the first days of school next school year. And no, we're really excited. Even when it comes to now revising our continuity of learning plan, it's okay, how do we revise our continuity of learning plan with now our strategic coherence plan in mind? So this now is the basis for where we start conversations for how we operate as a school district. So as long as you vote to approve it tonight.
And just actually one on that point, just as a really technical question, does educational delivery, e.g. delivering education in through a distance learning structure, does that fall under curriculum? Is that a curricular part, or where would, like, modalities of education delivery, where does that fall?
So I would separate curriculum and delivery.
Okay.
So I would equate delivery with instruction, and they're two separate things. So the modality, if you will, to use your term, it falls under that umbrella of instruction. But we have to, and there's a lot of good work to be done under that curriculum umbrella as well. So and that's been the basis of some conversations that Judy and I have had over the last couple weeks, and now operationalizing this into next school year, that will now broaden out to the full administrative team, wrap our heads around, and then bring out to our faculty as well. So
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any further conversation or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution to appoint election personnel. I'll turn it over to Ms. Platt.
Yes, and I do just want to say two things. One, it does require a roll call vote at the end.
Thank you.
And also, I fought with board docs on this, and now it looks like board docs might have won. I have one mistake in it. On section 3, it says the following named qualified voters of the district are appointed as inspectors of electors. I'd just like to remove the word qualified voters. That's not required. And you do not need to be a qualified voter in order to be an election inspector. So I really thought I got that out of there, and it's back. So I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the following resolution to appoint election personnel for the annual district meeting on June 9th, 2020.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Platt.
President Daly?
Yes.
Vice President Headland?
Yes.
Trustee Clements?
Yes.
Trustee McNally?
Yes.
And Trustee Parr?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Going into the approval of the calendar amendment.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the amendment to the 2019-2020 school calendar, designating June 12th, 2020 as the last day of school for students and June 15th, 2020 as a superintendent's conference day.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This is what we discussed earlier. We'll be ending on June 12th for students and June 15th for teachers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, communication from the public. Let's see. I'm going to read, I'll read Mr. Solom's report here. My apologies for the technical issues. All I wanted to report was that Mrs. Mary Rose Donahue will be the next Blue Devil Booster Club president. I'm looking forward to working with Mary Rose as the next leader of the Booster Club. Thank you to our current president, Mrs. Dawn Skanga, for her help and support over the last few years. Also, the athletic department and Booster Club are finalizing a few ways to honor our senior student athletes. More information will be communicated with families over the next few weeks. you. Thank you. Chris.
Actually, maybe I would have thought of this if Chris had done his report, but I follow the district on Twitter, and there have been these really nice posts, I think, as part of doing that. I don't know if other people have seen it, but definitely recognizing the seniors with a nice graphic of the seniors and the sports and their accomplishments. And I've enjoyed seeing those as one way, you know, to honor the student athletes, given the circumstances.
I agree, Peggy. I think they're really nice.
Okay, I don't think there is any more communication from the public unless I'm missing it. All right, so we're going into the board committee reports. Our policy committee update. Not sure if we have anything to update, but Peggy, do we have anything to update since our last update?
No, I think that the update is we're in the process of moving forward. I actually think the next step has hit me as an obstacle right now, but it's just making sure that Dr. Benante and others at the district have all the information they need to review the policies that require their review. And then we'll be sending the policy manual back to BOCES to Erie BOCES to make those changes. So yeah.
Yep, great. And then the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association update. I don't have much to say differently than what I've been saying, which is I think they've been doing a fantastic job through this crisis of really connecting school boards with each other. Those weekly calls that they've been doing, I think, have been really helpful, and I hope you guys have found it kind of interesting to see those summaries. It's nice to know we're not alone. And they've been a serious wealth of information, just sending out emails about all the changes that are happening in a really timely way. So I'm grateful to them. Going into board reflections, is there anything anyone would like to share? I'll share that Dr. Benante and John and I all had a budget meeting last week with the leadership of the PTA, the leadership of the School Foundation, the Blue Devils Booster Club, and the Arts Alliance. It was really productive. It was our first opportunity to start sharing the information in our budget and to try to get some community support, and all of the organizations were really supportive, eager to help get the word out, get people to go vote. And I left the meeting thinking, gosh, why haven't we done this before? I don't think I've ever sat in the same room with the leadership from all of those organizations at the same time for a meeting about the budget. I mean, it's maybe all those people have been at like the same fundraiser, but like they've never actually been in a meeting together. And it was a real reminder to me of the power in these organizations and in this leadership. And so great that we were all talking to each other and on the same page instead of operating, in our own universes. So I thought it was a really positive experience.
I have two brief comments. One, some of the reports were a little more extended. I really appreciate that from the administrators. A month ago when we had the last workshop meeting, all of this still felt new, and it was just really great to hear folks reflect, not just reflect, but report in depth about their priorities and what they're doing. And I really commend the district on sending out the parent survey, to find out how this has been working for parents. One of the things, we can imagine that the parents are having all different kinds of experiences. And so really having, giving everybody a chance to weigh in, not not everybody might always just volunteer their opinions, but to provide folks with the opportunity to weigh in. And I assume, is it confidential, like getting some information about maybe grade level and things like that, but other than that, providing parents with an opportunity to speak? I
Correct.
anticipate respectfully and honestly. Yeah.
Yes, it's confidential, Peggy. We did
Or
want to
anonymous.
collect some, or anonymous, that's correct. We did want to collect some basic information of like grade level. I think that's as specific or as identifying as we get. Christine spoke to it earlier. I mean, the developmental differences of working with a primary age student at home versus a secondary student, but it's important for us in considering the other questions to know, was this feedback that's being provided for a parent from a parent of a 5 or 6 year old versus a parent of a 12 or 13 year old. So we did feel like we needed to know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ahead of time, but I think that's as specific as we get in anything that would be identifying. And at the same time, too, as you know this better than anyone, we're trying to keep it short enough that people will complete it. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, no, I think it's really, very commendable on top of everything else, to go to that effort to really, invite and really ask for the feedback and the important expertise and that parents have about
Thanks.
this experience. So thank you for that.
Are there any other board reflections? I'll turn it over then to Dr. Benante for any final thoughts.
Just a segue from what Peggy was sharing. So we just realized as we're bringing the school year to closure, and I've mentioned this to the board before, we have 1 foot in closing out the school year, but also 1 foot in our planning for next school year. And there's a lot for us to address through these summer months. And we're trying to do our best. You only have one shot at ending something. So we're trying to do our very best to end the school year on a high note, or as high a note as we can with our families and with our kids, and whatever medium that may be. And at the same time, to take a bit of a break, a step away, and to come back right into our planning for the upcoming school year. So we're kind of in both lands right now, because we're putting some structures in place for the beginning of our planning for next school year. And I look forward to that. And I just want to, again, thank everyone, the board and our administrative team who are here with us today. I know I had a chance to talk to our teacher leadership earlier, and just things continue to be moving in a positive direction, and I'm really appreciative of that. And Andrew, it was great to see you tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So before we adjourn, I just want to make a note for the board. So next Tuesday night, we're going to have an executive session to finish up Dr. Benante's evaluation, right? So we're going to say 6 p.m. for that. Sounds good? Okay. So just writing that down, saying that out loud. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.